Hi, everybody. Happy Monday.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Betsy.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning. Yeah, nice to see you all here today. So we're starting Julius Caesar this week, so it's kind of exciting. We'll be talking today about Act 1. There are also a lot of materials in Canvas for you to take a look at if you want to, including some historical material about where Shakespeare got the bulk of the information for the play. It's all coming from Plutarch, a history written about Caesar and Brutus. So if you're curious about the alignment between the history and the play, feel free to take a look at that information. There's also a synopsis and some film materials that are there that you can use if you need them. Don't forget also the first reading assignment has an audio version attached to it. So if you want to use the audio version while you're reading, feel free to do that. Today, this week, just kind of thinking ahead, we'll be meeting during our class meetings to talk about the play. Tomorrow, we're going to talk a little bit about literary theory. And then on Thursday, we'll talk a little bit about paper 1. So again, paper 1, you can use either Taming of the Shrew or Julius Caesar as your primary text. And we'll be talking a little bit about how to think about making an argument. You know, people write whole books about these plays, so we're not gonna do anything that big. So be thinking about small things that are interesting to you that you might want to tease out a little bit more. And I'm not very oriented toward length, but I think it takes about 4 double-spaced pages to do what I'm asking you to do. And if you struggle with length, my recommendation to you would just be for the rough draft, write what you got. Don't try to pad with talking about too much stuff. Just talk about the thing you want to talk about and get in and get out, and then let me help you lengthen. I know lots of students struggle with length, and that's kind of what I see as my job, to call your attention to places where you might add analysis. But we'll talk about that more on Thursday. And then we'll do the same thing next week that we did this week. We'll watch an adaptation of Julius Caesar during our class time next week. So we probably won't meet Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, except to view the adaptation for those of you that want to view it with me. And then we'll gather together at the end of next week on Friday and talk about the play itself. Okay. The rough draft of the paper is due at the end of next week. So you'll by Monday of next week, you'll want to be started to draft something. And when I say draft, I mean draft. The more you have done, the better, because you get feedback. But if, you know, it is what it is in terms of length. When it's due, turn it in and be done with it. And then we'll give you feedback and you can keep going. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. I had a busy Friday on Friday, and I didn't get the video from Friday posted until today. And also the exercise for Friday's class is now there. If you need to do it, go ahead and make it up. I finally cleared my schedule so that I can take a look at the week 2 exercise you completed for me. So I'll be doing that today. And then I'll raise any issues for a conversation tomorrow that come up in my reading. Great. Landry, the paper deadline for the draft, I think I said Friday of next week. I'm trying to remember because I just set it up. Let me double check. Yeah, it's I have Friday, April 23rd for the paper 1 draft. Thanks for asking for clarification. Yeah. Yeah, so whatever you've got by Friday at the end of the day, just submit it. We'll be posting the drafts on the discussion board because we're going to be doing some peer feedback, and that will just allow all of us to access the drafts. And so that when you work with peers on providing feedback, you'll have access to their drafts as well. Okay, and that'll all be set up when week 4 is turned on, so you'll be able to see everything there. Other questions or concerns? Friday the 20th. Let me see. Let's see. So the Friday of next week is April 23rd. I'm just looking at my calendar right here. So no worries. Thanks, Jordan. I always get it wrong. So, you know, it has a number in it. So I'm kind of like, it's math related. Dates are kind of hard. Okay. Great. Well, I want to see just a couple things. I do have an opportunity for folks to read today. So if you are willing to read, would you just go into participants and click the green yes? Okay, let's see. Great. Okay, I think I've got enough people. I do have two, I think we'll read for sure one section and maybe a second section, depending on how much time we have left. So, but what I want to do is read just the beginning of the play and talk a little bit about the historical moment for these folks. So I'm gonna pull up the play on my screen here. If you have your copy, you might just pull it up so you can have a look at it. Is that it? Where is it? There it is. Okay, so we're just gonna read maybe the first 60 lines or so of this Act 1, Scene 1, and then I'll talk just a little bit about it. So let me ask Dakota to read Flavius, and Ellie to read The Carpenter, and Megan to read Marulus, and Kristen to read The Cobbler. And one thing you might notice as they're reading is the class difference between the workers and the senators. The ones with the fancy names are the upper class senator guys, and the workers are called after their trade. So, and watch also for humor. Remember, we were talking a little bit about the induction in Taming of the Shrew as kind of a moment to call the attention to the stage, right? In a theater that happens outdoors during daylight. You know, Flavius coming onto the stage and saying, hence, would be a great way to catch the audience's attention. And then the humor attached to the lower class characters is also a good way to get people, you know, kind of ready to see the production. So let's think about the humor as we go into this as well. Okay, Flavius, it's all you. You get to start.
Hence, home, you idle creatures, get you home. Is this a holiday? What know you not? Being mechanical, you ought not walk upon a laboring day without the sign of your profession? Speak, what trade art thou?
Why, sir, a carpenter.
Where is thy leather apron and thy rule? What dost thou with thy best apparel on? You, sir, what trade are you?
Truly, sir, in respect of a fine workman, I am but, as you would say, a cobbler.
But what trade art thou? Answer me directly.
A trade, sir, that I hope I may use with a safe conscience, which is indeed, sir, a mender of bad souls.
What trade, thou knave, thou naughty knave, what trade?
Nay, I beseech you, sir, Be not out with me, yet if you be out, sir, I can mend you.
What mean'st thou by that? Mend me, thou saucy fellow.
Why, sir, cobble you.
Thou art a cobbler, art thou?
Truly, sir, all that I live by is with the owl. I meddle with no tradesmen's matters nor women's matters, but withal I am indeed, sir, a surgeon to old shoes. When they are in great danger, I recover them, as proper men as ever trod upon neat's leather have gone upon my handiwork.
But wherefore art not in thy shop today? Why dost thou lead these men about the street?
Truly, sir, to wear out their shoes, to get myself into more work. But indeed, sir, we make holiday to see Caesar and to rejoice in his triumph.
Wherefore rejoice? What conquest brings he home? What tributaries follow him to Rome? To grace in captive bonds his chariot wheels. You blocks, you stones, you worse than senseless things. Oh, you hard hearts, you cruel men of Rome. Knew you not, Pompey? Many a time and oft have you climbed to walls and battlements, to towers and windows, yea, to chimney tops, your infants in your arms, and there have sat the livelong day, your patient expectation, to see great Pompey pass the streets of Rome. And when you saw his chariot but appear, have you not made a universal shout? That timber trembled underneath her banks, to hear the replication of your sounds, made in her concave shores. And do you now put on your best attire, and do you now call out a holiday, and do you now strew flowers in his way, that come in triumph over Pompey's blood? Begone! Run to your houses, fall upon your knees, pray to the gods to intermit the plague that needs must light on his ingratitude.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have these working class people that are parading through the streets, and we have these senators that are calling them out, right? Sort of pulling them over to the side and saying, "Why are you doing this? What do you hear? Why aren't you at work?" So the tensions in this scene have to do with the politics. And you can see that they mention Pompey, right? So Pompey was another senator, right, who was vying with Caesar for control over the Senate. And Caesar defeated Pompey's children, which is partly what kind of pissed Flavius and Marcellus off, right? That it wasn't just Pompey, it was his young children who were fighting, I guess must have been young sons, fighting on his behalf. And so Caesar's victory is to a certain extent tainted by their blood, the blood of children or young men. And also, just the fact that Rome is fighting Rome, right? So when the Flavius and Marcellus are criticizing these working people for cheering Caesar, they're kind of criticizing their fickleness, right? You used to be out here in the streets for Pompey, and now you're here for Caesar. That, right? How can you do that? How can you betray that loyalty? And so you can tell that there's some political division in the Republic at this moment. Some people are still clinging to the Pompey side of the fight, and other people are happy to see Caesar take power. A couple of other things to know is that although the play doesn't say so, Caesar has been given the title perpetual dictator, which seems odd in a republic, right? Which is supposed to be a representative form of government. But people are so happy with him that they're willing to give that title to him. In the play, in Shakespeare's version, he's never mentioned as holding that title, but he is repeatedly tempted with a crown, right? And the histories indicate that even though he had the title perpetual dictator, he still wanted to be called king. So he was still working on that one. And we see him be tempted and not take the crown, but there's some sense that he wants it. he's he's greedy for it, right? And that there's a concern around that. One other piece of this history is that Brutus and Cassius fought against Caesar and were pardoned, right? So they survived whatever battle happened. Perhaps they weren't even on the battlefield. They were just in the opposing group. And so there's definitely some tension among the major characters that comes out of this history. Okay, good. So questions, comments, concerns about those ideas that are there and kind of buried in the beginning. And I'm just going to pull up the chat in case folks want to chat. I think I'm pulling it up. It won't come up. Hello. Well, I may need to stop my sharing for a sec. Oh, it just was slow. Okay, so yeah, any thoughts about the history or questions about it? Any thoughts about the common people and the use of humor? Did you notice any funny things going on there?
I actually just watched like a YouTube skit sort of talking about that same idea of, buying the damage and also the repair to keep your business going.
Right, right. What do you call it with technology? Like you have a built-in expiration date so they can sell you another product.
The planned obsolescence.
Planned obsolescence. There we go. There's the term, right? So yeah, so this cobbler is kind of planning some obsolescence by marching people through the town. Yeah, good. What other thoughts about that? Let me pull it back up again so we can look at some of the wording. He's a pretty funny character. I assume he's a he, right? Getting myself into more work. Yeah, so he's joking-ish. Right, and there's some nice play on words there. All that I live by is with the all, right? So there's like a joke, a pun on the word all and all, homophones. Yeah. Tradesmen's matters and women's matters. I don't meddle with that stuff. And shoes could be in danger. I almost want to say that maybe there's some play on the word soul, right? So clearly the word soul is there, which has to do with the bottom of the shoe. But it could also be soul, like the homophone, S-O-U-L, especially since the cobbler seems to already be punning on all. So a mender of bad souls might be somebody who helps you with your sinning problem. So there's some stuff there that might be kind of funny to look into. Yeah. I can mend you, right? You rich people, I got something for you. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, so one thing to keep your eye on is that Flavius and Marullus never appear again in the play after this first scene. And they're mentioned, I think, in the following scene as having been silenced. Right, so in this scene, they are clearly for Pompey against Caesar. They are going around and taking off the decorations from these, kind of busts of Caesar, like concrete statues of Caesar, pulling down all the celebratory materials attached to them, and they get silenced. So there's a little bit of evidence going on there in terms of Caesar's, here, I've got this kind of like tracking Caesar's faults and Caesar's benefits, right? So here's a fault, right, that maybe he silenced or had silenced Flavius. I'm not sure how to spell these guys' names, not looking at it right now. Marullus, right? So maybe this is something we can blame him for, right? A dictator would go around and silence people who disagreed with him. So that might be something to keep in mind. Okay, so let's take a look now at the second scene. And I won't do any group reading here, but I do think this is an important one, and I'm going to read a section of it for you. But let's eyeball it together. And again, maybe I'll pull it up so we can look at it. Can't remember if I've got a whole text here. All right, yep. Okay, so just a couple of things to notice. Of course, these people are still celebrating Caesar's victory. And here in this scene, we get to see Caesar himself, right? Celebrating with his friends and his wife, Calpurnia, right? So she's present. One thing to notice in this exchange, initial exchange, is that they're going to run a race, and Antony is going to run in it, right? So he's a young senator. As part of the celebration, they're going to run this course, and Caesar says, touch, as you pass, touch Calpurnia, because she's barren, right? So she can't have children, and Caesar's eager for an heir, right? And in a republic, you wouldn't necessarily pass your seat to your son, but in a monarchy, you would, right? So there's some sign there that Caesar's interested in ruling in full, right? Okay. Couple of other things to notice in the early part of the sequence. You may have heard the saying, beware the Ides of March, right, which is March 15th. We've survived the Ides of March. Gosh, the Ides of March of last year were pretty brutal, right? That was when COVID just shut everything down. So maybe that's just a bad day. Stay in bed on the 15th of March. So we have a soothsayer telling Caesar he needs to beware, right? That date is approaching, and Caesar won't listen to him. So just, again, something to notice. And then one other thing I want to just note before I talk in a little more detail about Cassius is Brutus's concern, right? So Brutus and Cassius were both against Caesar recently. And so now they're chit-chatting together, and Cassius is kind of like, hey, dude, you're not as friendly as you've been in the past. Is something up? Are you what's going on? And Brutus is like, oh, it's not you, it's me. It's typical. Right, so something is weighing on him, and it's just interfering with his ability to relate to people. And then Cassius talks with him a little bit further about that. I'm just going to see if I can find the line that I need. And so this is when Brutus finally reveals what's up with him, right? He's worried. He says, I do fear the people choose Caesar for their king, right? So he's concerned that Caesar is going to make this move, basically crown himself, and that the mob, who are fickle, right, will support him. And so that's what's weighing him down. Okay. So Cassius sees his opportunity to get Brutus on his team. Cassius is definitely anti-Caesar, and Brutus is Caesar's close friend. So Brutus feels definitely some quailings of conscience attached to opposing his friend. Like, he likes him, like, he liked the guy, I just don't like what he's doing, right? So he's trying to reconcile himself to that. And what I'd like to do is take a closer look at Cassius's speech, whereby he's trying to get Brutus to see that Caesar is in the wrong, right? To really sort of sway him further into the side that Cassius himself favors. So I'd like to look at the section. It's beginning with line, let's see, it looks like it's line 97. I know that virtue to be in you, Brutus, right? So I'm just going to read it, and you can listen and look as we go along. I'm going to read from there until it says shout, flourish around line 131 or thereabouts. I think my book numbers are different from the play numbers. Okay, so here he goes, right? This is Cassius. I know that virtue to be in you, Brutus, right? And he's talking here, right? Brutus has said, I love the name of honor more than I fear death, right? So Cassius is saying, yeah, I know you're that kind of guy. I know that virtue to be in you, Brutus, as well as I do know your outward favor. Like I know it as much as I recognize what you are on the outside, I recognize this honorable part of you on the inside. Well, honor is the subject of my story. I cannot tell what you and other men think of this life, but for my single self, I had as lief not be, as live to be, in awe of such a thing as I myself. I was born free as Caesar, so were you. We both have fed as well, and we can both endure the winter's cold as well as he. For once upon a raw and gusty day, the troubled Tiber chafing with her shores, Caesar said to me, darest thou, Cassius, now leap in with me into this angry flood and swim to yonder point? Upon the word, accoutred as I was, I plunged in and bade him follow. So indeed he did. The torrent roared, and we did buffet it with lusty sinews, throwing it aside, and stemming it with hearts of controversy. But ere we could arrive the point proposed, Caesar cried, help me, Cassius, or I sink. And I, as Aeneas, our great ancestor, did from the flames of Troy upon his shoulder the old Anchises bear, so from the waves of Tiber did I the tired Caesar. And this man is now become a god, and Cassius is a wretched creature and must bend his body if Caesar carelessly nod on him. He had a fever when he was in Spain, and when the fit was on him, I did mark how he did shake. 'Tis true this god did shake. His coward lips did from their color fly, and that same eye whose bend doth awe the world did lose his luster. I did hear him groan, aye, and that tongue of his that bade the Romans mark him and write his speeches in their books. Alas, it cried, give me some drink, Titinius, as a sick girl. You gods, it doth amaze me a man of such a feeble temper should so get the start of the majestic world and bear the palm alone. Okay, so Cassius is telling some stories to help Brutus imagine being on his side. All right, I'd like us to do a little work with this section. I'm just going to stop share for a second so I can see everybody. Okay. I'd like each of you to take a word. I'm going to give you a word to work with, and we're going to do a little close reading all together. So let me grab my list of things we should be looking at. Okay, now I have to look at this and the list of participants at the same time. Let me see if I can do it. All right, so when I say your name, I'll give you a word or a phrase to work with. What I'd like you to do is you can jot stuff down on a sheet of paper, or you can jot it down on a blank Word document, wherever you want. Maybe just take a few notes regarding the wording, right? So think about what the words mean and the different ways they mean, right? So a single word might have multiple meanings. What are the meanings attached to that word? If you want to use a dictionary, you're welcome to do it, but I think you might be able to do it without one. And we'll take maybe 5 minutes after I've assigned words to everybody for you to explore the word a little bit, and then to put some ideas in the chat about your word. Okay, before I assign words, are there questions about the instructions? Okay, so Adriana, would you work with outward favor? It's the second line in this sequence. So about line 98. So outward favor. Thanks, Adriana. Then Anani, would you work with honor? And then let me have Betsy work with free. I was born free. It's line 104. And then Dakota, will you work with the word thing, which is in line 103? It's kind of a fun one because it's an easy word.
Okay.
Yeah. And then let me have Edgar, will you work with the word fed in line 105? And then Ellie, will you work with winter in 106? And Jasmine with chafing in line 108. And Jordan with angry in line 110. And then Kristen, will you do lusty in line 115? Okay. Landry, will you do controversy, line 116?
Yep.
Great. McKenna, will you do sync, line 118, it looks like? And then Megan, Megan, I'll just give this one to you. If you don't want it, you don't have to have it. Would you look at Aeneas? I'd have to look that one up. I kind of know who the guy is, but I would definitely look at a source for that one. Great. Then Michelle, would you look at the word Troy? Again, you might know something about that, or you might want to look that one up. Nakia, would you do the word God? Noah, would you do wretched? Rachel, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to give lines. Okay, let's see. Aeneas was on line 119. Troy was on line 120. God is on line 123. Wretched is on 124. Let's see. Rosa, will you do carelessly on 125? Let's see. Sanheshki, will you do fit? Line 127. Tasha, shake on line 128. And Vajik, I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing your name right.
It's Vike.
Vike, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Would you do coward on
Yes.
line 129?
Awesome, I can do that.
Okay, thanks. Did I get everybody? Maybe I missed, did I get Tasha?
Yes, you gave me shake.
Okay, perfect. And who's missing is anybody missing anything? Has everybody got a word? Oh, Rachel,
I was just wondering if you could repeat my word. Sorry.
And I don't even remember. So let me give you another one. Would you do fly, line 129?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Anybody else? Okay, so let's take about 5 minutes. I'll just pause our recording so we have time to just kind of explore. And let's come back at, well, let's say come back at 12:40. So we're at 12:40. Feel free to add your ideas, whatever they are so far, to the chat. We're just gonna, we're all gonna work together to produce a little bit of close reading of this passage. So I put in some for my word was luster from line 131. And I was interested to find it had to do with like polish, like a polished surface with stars having luster, a reflective surface, a glaze like in ceramics. And so I had a lot of ideas about, it was attached to Caesar, right? So he's lost his glory, he's become dull, he's lost intelligence, his life force, he's become blurry or confused. He's earthbound or human or vulnerable. So all in one word, there's a lot of kind of cool ideas. Yeah, I'm just gonna look at the chat as you all are adding to it. Yeah, Betsy with free. Yeah, that Cassius and Brutus are not under the power of another, right? They're free. They're citizens in a republic, right? So they have a role and they have rights. They can't be dominated. Yeah, fed refers to having eaten, right? So Caesar's a normal man. He eats just like Brutus and Cassius. And they right, so they're equal in standing. He's not greater than they are. Yeah, nice. Right, and coward. Yep, good. All right, now it's starting to come fast. Awesome. Right, so being fearful or lacking courage in regards to saying or performing something unpleasant. Controversy, right, means a contested subject, a heated topic, something that can be seen from varying points of view, a lot of emotion attached, right? It might mean that hearts don't agree and can cause problems, and that those involved will be coming from different opinions or motivations, points of view. Nice. Yeah, yeah. Thing, right, from line 103. Cassius is trying to demystify Caesar, right? They're all people. We shouldn't be in awe of him. Carelessly, yeah, it means reckless or unconcerned. So one might be considered careless. Shake, right? So Caesar was shaky. Tremble or vibrate, move up or down, side to side, right? Right. This act of shaking is kind of like connected with cowardice. Yeah, absolutely. Right, good. God, if it's capitalized, seems to mean a monotheistic deity. Otherwise, there's multiple deities. It can be used to describe a person whose level is above others, right? They're amazing, like Caesar has been almost deified here. Yeah, I love it. It can be also used as an exclamation. Yeah, absolutely. Angry, strong, annoyance, displeasure, hostility. Yep, yep. Back to the idea of free, right? So Cassius is using this line to show he's just as powerful as Caesar, just as worthy of Brutus's trust. Wretched can mean very unhappy or unfortunate state or poor quality, very bad. Might be used to express anger or annoyance. Angry also aligns with that one, right? The word winter. You could endure the winter's cold. Winter's a season of the year where it becomes colder. And it might mean that Brutus and Cassius can survive a winter like Caesar. And I like that idea, Ellie, about referring to hard times, that a winter could be a metaphor for hard times, right? So everybody's gone through winters together. Nice. So Caesar is not that great, right? The word sink. Yeah. Sink could mean going below the surface, becoming submerged, descending, dropping into. A flood was mentioned, right? So it could be literal, absolutely, that Caesar was just sinking literally in the story. But I like that idea, right? That he's also maybe descending in power, or he's coming down in our evaluation of him. Chafing from line 108 is a scraping or rubbing of things together, like the shoes are too tight or scraping of feet. Yep, lusty. The act of swimming has been described as throwing the torrent aside with lusty sinews, right? So these men were strong and vigorous swimmers. Yeah, except one of them kind of wasn't, right? Or Cassius is calling Caesar on his bad moment. Aeneas is a hero in the Trojan War, son of Aphrodite, who protected him during the war, leaving him one of the only Trojan survivors, right? He's supposedly settled in Italy. His descendants founded Rome. Right, so Cassius is comparing his rescue of Caesar to the deeds of Aeneas, right? And yeah, and look at Caesar, he's treated like a god, and what am I, chopped liver, right? So like that. Great. Sanheshki, yeah, the word fit, right? The definition is the midpoint, like the high point of a fever. The sickness is centering him in the eyes of Cassius, but he is literally fit for sickness. It suits him. Ooh, the Old Norse is fitja, meaning in the web, or knit. Befit, or meaning that sickness being near death is always his place, right? So Caesar's a weakling, right? Yeah. Good. The word fly from line 78 will make him fly at an ordinary pitch. Fly is a verb, right? It can mean to leave or run away from. Yeah, I think used a lot of time in Shakespeare as to run away from. Nice. Wow. You all did great, right? So when we come back to look at that, that passage, we have a whole, I think, deep understanding of it based on all of the wording we've been looking at. So So I'm just going to pull it up one more time. And this is what's kind of fun, I think, about, I don't know, maybe I'll put that in quotation marks. This is the fun of literary analysis, is digging in and trying to figure out, like, what are the words doing? How is Cassius using these stories, and not just the content of the stories, but the wording of the stories to help make his claim about Caesar's weakness? Yeah. And I like that idea, right? Outward favor, right? Knowing someone based on their face gestures, intentions. Yeah. No, that's great, Adriana. That's fine. Right. So, so there's a lot of dinging of Caesar here, right? Cassius doesn't like him. Cassius thinks he's at least as good, if not better, than Caesar, because Caesar can't swim in this, river, because Caesar has probably epileptic fits, is what's being described as a fever or a fit, right? So Caesar has this medical weakness that makes him unfit to be in power. Yeah, right. And he's trying to say, Brutus, you too. You're just as good as Caesar. And why does Caesar have all this stuff and we don't? So he's trying to get Brutus to see that Brutus needs to take some action. Yeah. Great. I'm going to come back to the sick girl image, right? So we'll talk a little bit more tomorrow about literary theory and also about gender theory and the ways in which masculinity is being constructed in this play. Unlike, well, I don't know, the whole Taming of the Shrew was mostly men too. So I don't know, that Julius Caesar is not a surprise, maybe because they had only men actors to play around with, but lots of the comedies have many more women than these plays do. Yeah, this is a treasonous conversation, Jordan, exactly. Yeah, right? Right? Cassius is clearly not only wanting to say that Caesar is a loser, but he's also trying to get Brutus to say it, right? So he's inciting this move toward treason on the part of Brutus, who's an honorable man. I think this has to do with, I think, the view of masculinity among the men in this play and what a man should do and be. And in Cassius's construction, a man who's a leader should be brave and strong physically and strong mentally, not dull, right? Not stupid, not weak, not having trouble with his body or having trouble with his health, right? That's these days we don't do that. We don't do that kind of discriminative anymore, hopefully, right? There's lots of barriers that people, of course, experience based on their ability of their bodies, but we try to make it equitable as best we can. That's not something Cassius is talking about here. Good. Questions, comments, concerns? It was just so great to see all your ideas. I think what I'll do is I'll collect them and put them in a document in case you all want to use them later. Yeah, and this, Sanheshki, thanks for raising that, right? The Trojan War lineage, right, is this grand mythic, brave moment in sort of history and literary history that has caused the founding of Rome, which is a brave moment in history and literary history. And I think the British do see themselves as sort of descended from the Trojans via the Romans, right? Because the Romans moved into the British Isles and did some conquering there. So the glory of Troy is also the glory of English people. It's a bit of a reach, but that's maybe how they thought at the time. Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow and think about the ways in which masculinity is being used to put pressure on these men to act in certain ways. And that's just a topic that leaps to mind as a theoretical orientation that would be interesting to talk about. If you don't like that orientation, you don't have to work with it ever again, but we'll do a little bit of conversation around it tomorrow. Okay, other questions or thoughts before we quit for today? Okay, so just take a look at Act 2 for tomorrow. Yeah, thanks, Anishki. Yeah, Troy is in Turkey, so it's a little bit far away, but okay. Yeah, great. Thanks very much. I'll see you all tomorrow.